Welcome, everyone. I am opening the meeting of the regular meeting of the Board of Directors for September 25th, 2025. And Deborah, could you please do the roll call?
Certainly. Hamaji?
Here.
Bentley?
Here.
Hart?
Here.
Byram?
Here.
Hildreth?
Here.
Lair?
Here.
Selden?
Here.
Walker?
Here.
Yang?
Here.
And Matheson.
Here.
And are there any changes to the minutes?
Members are entitled to speak during the designated open forum portion of this meeting, whether attending in person or via Zoom. Each speaker is limited to 2 minutes. If speaking on behalf of another member, additional instructions provided on the forum slips must be followed. All speakers must clearly state their full name and Rossmore address before beginning their comments. Please be advised that this meeting is being broadcast and recorded. By attending and participating in this meeting, including during the open forum, each attendee agrees to and releases the Rossmore Walnut Creek from all liability for their voice and or likeness being recorded and broadcast for any lawful purpose without compensation. Thank you.
Okay. Now, are there any changes to our minutes from the August 28th meeting? Seeing none, we'll say they're approved. And Cindy Silva. Cindy is our council member and liaison to Rossmore. Welcome.
Thank you very much, and good morning. Now that September is here, and in a wild way, we've gone from 100-degree weather to thunder and lightning last night. And when I was working on my notes for this morning, I saw these lights flashing outside my office window, and then I realized it was lightning. So, but now that September is here and the fall season, the city has a lot on its agenda, which I'll review this morning. At our council meeting last week, the council had an informational session on municipal bond financing. It was complicated, it was in depth, because we are going to be using bond financing as part of the funding strategy for the building of the community center and aquatics facility at Heather Farm Park. So we got all the ins and outs and what the SEC rules are and all of that, so we have to be very careful. The financing discussion coincided with the release of the bids for, or the bid documents to invite construction companies to apply to build the project. We have 8 pre-qualified construction companies involved, and we will expect to receive probably bids from at least 4 of them. And we should get the bids within about a month, and then we will be planning to award the contract for this very major project by late November. Also, at our recent meeting, the council received an update on our work on our 5 strategic priorities, which we established in the spring during a council retreat. The 5 priorities, in case you don't remember them and they're not on the top of your head, I have to look at them up as well. Public safety and social wellness, environmental sustainability, economic development and downtown vitality, park and recreation facilities, and the update of our general plan. The 90-minute presentation entailed a lot of details and facts, but I've winnowed it down to a few for each category. Continuing the discussion of park and recreation facilities, we've nearly completed the work to convert 2 ball fields at Heather Farm Park to all-weather turf. And what's really important about this is it takes the existing facility and allows us to extend the playing season for our youth sports teams. So rather than having to go out and buy new sports park land, we can basically make better use of the ones we have. 3 things to highlight on public safety. First, the city's crime prevention specialist is commencing the work on revamping the residential neighborhood watch program, which is very important to our community. And then they're also taking another approach to downtown business protection and prevention, and so a similar neighborhood watch program for our businesses as well. the police department's traffic division is conducting targeted speed enforcement on our busier roads such as Ignacio Valley Road, which is also a concern of the community. And we will be receiving an update at our October 21st meeting on our very fun e-bikes and e-bike safety and enforcement of the rules. And the challenge, as I mentioned at the last meeting, is that the state authorized and legalized these e-bikes for underaged riders, but never set any rules. So it's up to each of us locally to set the rules, which means a little bit of helter-skelter. Also at the October 21st meeting, we'll discuss our electric vehicle strategic plan, which is part of our environmental sustainability work. And in the coming months, we'll receive updates on our plans to transition to pollution-free landscaping equipment, first across the city, and then working it down to the private citizen and private residents and business. As part of our economic development initiatives, we've not only seen those outdoor dining establishments popping up again on our streets, we are updating both the first and second floor lobbies at City Hall to make it easier and more welcoming for residents and businesses to come in person, to walk in, get an appointment, and get help with their permits for development. Finally, I'll mention that the work to kick off the update of our general plan will begin at our October 7th City Council meeting. The general plan was last updated in 2006, so it's about time to do it again. They typically are done for a 20-year period, so we're right on time. But we do expect this is a big process. We want lots of community engagement, and we do expect it to take about 4 years before we will be finalizing the next version of the general plan. So now that I've talked about all of that, I'm sure all of you want to know more and more about the ins and outs of how cities operate. This fall, the city will again offer its Citizen Institute program. It will start on Wednesday, October 22nd, and it's a 5-evening, 5 Wednesday in a row program for about 25 to 30 people. And you get to learn the ins and outs of the police department, and you get to see where we do have a holding cell. You will get a backstage tour of the Lesher Center for the Arts, and you also can go to the Public Works Corporation yard, which is basically my favorite visit because you'll find out where we make the keys to the kingdom. There's plenty going on at the Lesher Center this fall. You have until Sunday, which is 4 more days, to actually see Center Rep's production of Indecent. This is a 1-act play that tells the true story of what happened 100 years ago when a Jewish-Polish theater company that had been touring Europe to wild acclaim brought their play to Broadway, called Indecent, or called The Vengeance of God, and found themselves at opening night shut down and arrested the entire cast and the producers and the directors So it's a story of how art and censorship can collide. My husband and I saw it last Friday night. It was spellbinding and very timely. This weekend, Bedford Gallery will open its newest show called The Observations of a Still Life. It opens this weekend and features the work of 22 artists, and the show runs through mid-December. And October 8, San Francisco Jazz at the Lesher Center kicks off with the performance by the internationally acclaimed jazz musician Branford Marsalis. And for more information and tickets, you can go to lesherartscenter.org and get all the information you want. So if you haven't already thought about it, it's time to get out your lederhosen and dirndl skirts because it's almost October, and we will bring back our annual Oktoberfest celebration this Friday evening and Saturday at Civic Park, and more details are on the city's website. And to close, I'll remind everyone that hunger is still a challenge in our community and in our region. And this Saturday, it will be a community-wide food drive that is being hosted by Walnut Creek Community Service Day. Food donations can be made Saturday morning from 8:30 to noon in front of local grocery stores, including the Rossmore Safeway, or you can make a virtual donation online. And donations will benefit the Food Bank of Contra Costa and Solano. And as always, I thank you for your work on behalf of Rossmore and the entire community, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Cindy? Adrian?
It's not really a question so much as a thank you. The police department has been here quite a lot in the last few weeks or so, pulling people over who are running stop signs and doing the enforcement job that there is required. Several of my neighbors noticed it, and they were ecstatic to see it. And so I really do thank the police department for actually showing up and enforcing our laws.
You mean stop signs aren't advisory?
Optional.
That's what I've heard.
Any other questions? Ted?
You brought up something about EV charging that the city is going to be looking into.
We have EV charging stations. What we're looking is to enhance our EV strategic plan so we can expand the number of electric vehicles as well as charging stations. And we're going to get the presentation on that plan in late October.
So is there any, so RWC has 30 charging stations in here, but some of the mutuals are looking at trying to put charging stations into their mutuals. Is there anything that the city is going to have to get deals on that would help out those mutuals who want to put it in there, and would they be reaching out to them to let them know that it's available if they want to do it?
I don't know the answer to that. I know that basically we're getting grants to be able to do them as well. We're not pulling this kind of money from the general fund. And so those grants are coming from Marin Clean Energy, MCE, and PG&E, but basically they're coming from the ratepayers from PG&E. So I'm happy to, if somebody who is leading, get a hold of me and I'll connect you with the right person at City Hall.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, Cindy.
Thank you.
We're going to take a step back because I neglected to ask if there were any edits or adjustments to the minutes from our joint budget meetings held on September 9th and 10th. Were there any changes to those minutes?
No.
All right, thank you. Seeing none, we'll say that they are approved. Now we'll move on to the financial status reports, and Todd Arterburn, our CEO, is going to do that for us.
Good morning, board. Good morning, everyone. I know we have a long agenda today, so just a couple things. As we saw last month as well, we do have 4 months left in the year, which impacts certain projects on our facility maintenance side. However, there are positive trends on both RWC and RPM continue to be very favorable, so we're in a really good place. We will have some erosion to that net income surplus when we just continue to do the facility maintenance work on the roads, some of the landscape maintenance, and obviously, as the board knows, we just finalized a 2024 audit with CBIZ, and so those are also, I say, a substantial bill that'll be coming in on the professional service audit side. So, but very favorable. I do want to make one point of clarification. Kim Starr on the Finance Committee brought up on our meeting, when I switched a couple months ago from actual to budget columns, the actual expense summary on the bottom, not the January, the August totals, but the expense summary is pulling in the budget to date, not actual expenses to date. My mistake, I meant to send those revised schedules out yesterday. I will follow up with this with the revised schedules for everyone on the board. It's just the summary of the actual expenses. So you might notice that if you look at the next page, so for like any utility expenses, if you look at the actual expense detail, you'll see that is a budget number, not an actual expense number. My apologies, I will get that fixed and new schedule sent out. However, it doesn't affect the totals on the top and actually where we are from a budget variance. So obviously we're very favorable right now through August. We will continue to eat up a little bit of that. Operating expenses, personnel expenses are favorable. We've had open positions and some changes, so we'll continue to see that. We have filled several positions, so, you know, obviously the employee costs are obviously always kind of in flux. We budgeted full staff, and depending on what actually happens for the year, we can enjoy some, you know, some savings there. And it also has some variation to benefits in terms of who comes on board and how many dependents they have, so there's some variation in there. But really positive results right now where we're sitting through August. Obviously, we actually want to be, you know, break even. We don't just want to run a surplus, but we're certainly in the right place in terms of the expenditures we have for the rest of the year. And you'll see this also through RPM, which we'll get to. So I know we have a huge agenda today. It's pretty much the same kind of trends. We'll get into the trust and the cash here in just a minute, so you can also see where we are in that. But any questions just on the top line income statement?
Any questions for Todd? Okay, we'll be talking a lot about budgets later.
Yes,
but
we
thank
will.
you very much.
Yeah, if you can go ahead and scroll down, Jeff, through the, go to this is the top level. Okay, you can just stop. Yeah, I want to see the RPM one real quick, the top level RPM one. Yeah, this one, perfect. Yeah, you just make that a little bigger. So same situation here. Obviously, we are running favorable on RPM. We're going to continue to see some of that through. We have, there's some very, you'll see the 178,000. If you go to the next slide real quick, you'll see on the income side, you know, you can look at our billable services on reserves up 176,000. The landscape's up 81,000. So we are doing well on the revenue side. So 180,000 of that is just actually bullish on the revenue side. And then, so, you know, that's a fantastic result, certainly on the billable services piece. And then our expenses are very favorable where we are right now. We are certainly going to eat a little bit away with that now that we have some staffing, including myself, with my new FP&A gentleman that's on board, which was budgeted for the year. We're going to take away some of the surplus, but I think we're going to, you know, as we're sitting here with 4 months left, I think we're going to see a very, very strong finish of the year with no real surprises. So that's all really good. All right, Jeff, you'll just go through to the cash.
I have a question, Todd.
Yeah, Dwight.
So the agenda packet did not include an actual to budget for RPM through August. Could we make sure that we see that in the agenda packet in the future? Thank you.
Make sure that everyone's on the same page, and I'll get that out with revised schedules. Apologize for that. There's one that's called cash or bank. Yeah, that one. As you know, we've been, for the last couple of months, kind of just showing where our cash balances are. Obviously, cash is king. You will see that we actually have grown our cash over the last 3 months, and I believe it was either Adrian or Dan at the Finance Committee, we brought up this discussion. One of the reasons our cash is higher right now is we did take in the Gallagher rebate, about $1.1 million on insurance. So that cash comes into our accounts before we make the reimbursements back to all the mutuals. So those dollars are sitting in there at the end of August, which will be allocated. So not that we're going to lose a lot of money, but if you were just curious why our cash keeps growing, obviously there's a portion of that is that we are favorable on our financials and our income, so we have less expenses, but at the same time we also have a little bit of that rebate refund from Gallagher that is in right now that will be allocated out, and you'll see some of that reduction next month.
So Todd, what's very difficult, because we're on the accrual basis of accounting, not on cash, to not see a balance sheet, and I hope we see that soon, because you can't really explain cash balances without a balance sheet.
Yeah, so I'll just speak to that. So, you know, one of the challenges we've had with NetSuite is twofold. One is just we've had some fixes on NetSuite that on how they treated the equity in the reporting. But then more importantly, we had to get to the 24 CBIZ final audit to run those audit adjustments through. So you will see a balance sheet next month. I have the report written. As a matter of fact, it actually lines up with what we see in the audit. So I think the board will be very happy to see that you can go compare the actual audited financials with our new balance sheet, and actually will show you the RPM, RWC, and trust piece all together and a total like the audit. So, and Dwight, I totally
We look
agree.
forward
I think
to
it's
that.
yeah, and that'll go along with the cash flow too, because once we have the balance sheet, we can connect the income statement and balance sheet. Yeah, so good things are just around the corner. So,
Adrian?
Yeah, so Todd and Jeff and I, and I remember forgetting who else was at the meeting, but we had a long session about the reporting, and so we will be seeing a more standard approach next month with the, operating statement, balance sheet, cash flow. This is obviously going to be quite a bit different than we've seen before, and so I'm a little concerned about the rest of the board being familiar with this and understanding how to read it properly and what to do with it. So I hope that over the next few weeks that we can talk as necessary just to understand what it is. I'll send out some notes about it, but I'd like to get some feedback from you on the board, and so that together with Todd we can pull together reports that make sense for the board, that make sense so that you can see whether we're doing right, whether we're doing wrong, whether we're on track or not, in a way that's meaningful to you. So look forward to that.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you very much, Todd.
thank you, Lan. Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, we're moving on to item number 6, the general manager's report. Jeff, if you could give us your report.
Good morning, everybody. So in this report, I just wanted to give a little bit of an overview of the Coffee with the GM that I held this last few weeks. This is not a presentation, but rather a roundtable discussion with residents that were interested in joining me. It was an opportunity to meet, interact, answer a lot of questions, receive some really good input, and just have good discussions all around. Some of the topics that we hit on were the relationship between RWC and the difference between RWC and all of the mutuals, what falls under mutual responsibility, what falls under RPM or RWC responsibility, so that people know where to go to get answers or how to get their questions, their problems resolved. We talked pretty extensively about the food and beverage study, what was behind the food and beverage study, the purpose of it, what we expect the long-term outcomes to be, the status of the current request for proposals for the operation of Creekside, that the existing vendor is part of that process. So we really talked about outcomes of that. What's next? There was a lot of interest in coffee service, obviously. So we look forward to a lot of additional information related to the food and beverage study in the next meeting that we have with you. We talked about capital projects, and there was interest in specific projects, in particular a spa at the outdoor pools, but there was other interest, and so we talked about how do projects come to be? How do they get into the mix for consideration? Where are they considered first? At the planning committee, and we talked about the facilities master plan that was developed. We then talked quite a bit about transit operations, and there was some transit users there that had very specific thoughts on the process and where we are with the transit. We talked about level of service and the concept of shared cost for all of our programs and amenities. So that was a really good discussion, and we should have some additional information coming out probably over the next 2 months related to transit services. And then Before I get into employee transitions, I would like to have Tom Cashon step up. We do have a few announcements related to Pedestrian Safety Awareness Month that we want to make the community aware of and invite the board to attend those events as well. So Tom, you want to?
Yeah, good morning, board and everybody in the audience. I'm Tom Cashon. I am the Public Safety Director for Rossmore, Walnut Creek. And first off, what does PSAM stand for? Close. No, Pedestrian Safety Awareness Month. So this is good. Okay, so some people might ask, this is October, by the way. This is early. I'm coming here to tell you this all starts in October, so 6 days from now. So some ask, well, who does this impact? Who does this affect? Does it really affect me? So let me ask, in the room, by a raise of your hand, how many of you are walkers? Okay, so the ones that didn't raise your hands, you must have levitated here today, right? Because you had to walk to get here. So that means you are a walker. So that means this applies to you. It really does. It applies to everyone, unless for some reason you are in your house and you never leave forever. Then maybe it wouldn't apply to you. But once you leave your manor, these safety things that we're going to be talking about do impact you. And it is not only your responsibility, but everybody's responsibility to look after each other to make sure that you are safe. So first off, let me just put out a quick thanks to Lynn Carruthers. She is the founder of Neighbors for Safer Streets, and really she's truly the one who sparks this every year for us to have this event here in Rossmore. So let me talk about some of the things that you will see in October. The first two things that I want to talk about are incredible community events. First one is coffee with a whole lot of cops. Not just coffee with the cops, but a whole lot of cops. I don't know if you realize this, but Lynn has made some incredible relationships with the police department, and a lot of cops are coming on out to talk to the community. That is on October 16th, Fireside Room, 8:30 to 11 a.m. Coffee with a whole lot of cops. So if you have any issues you want to bring in, or you want to learn more about the police department or what they can do to help you be safer, please come to that event. The other event is Street Stories. Have you ever wondered, as a Rossmore resident, walking along one day and you find yourself underneath a car? So if you want to find out what that's like, where this event, one day, one of our residents' life was changed forever, where he found himself underneath a car while he was walking on Tice Creek Drive. There will also be some other information from the city engineers are going to be there, as well as some other public safety officials to talk about stories that will make you a safer pedestrian in Rossmore. There will also be some safety articles in the Rossmore News, as well as in Nixle, so please keep those, looking out for those. And I wanted to just give you what our goal is, as well as your goal, and I know this is your goal because you state it all the time, that public safety is one of our main goals, and that is we want to make pedestrians even safer here. Pedestrians are safe here, but we want to make them even safer. So I wanted to leave you today with a tip. So coming up in the next, month, we're going to set our clocks back, right? It's going to be a lot darker earlier, right? And we already are all walkers. You guys can't deny it anymore. I taught you that. So here's a tip. Most everybody has a smartphone or any kind of phone that has a flashlight on it. I want you to try to walk with your flashlight on. Give that a shot. Let's see if you could be a little more visible to the cars here in Rossmore as well as other people. And let's see if that helps us to be a little bit more safer in October, which is Pedestrian Safety Awareness Month. Thank you. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
And that's the conclusion of my report.
Just a quick question, Jeff. How many people usually attend the Coffee with the GM?
The first one, I had Janet and 3 others. And the last one, though, we had about 25, maybe. So we're building.
Thank you. Any questions for Jeff? All right, moving on to the member forum. Mary, do we have any speakers?
Yes, we have one speaker, Susan Manata.
I'm Susan Manata. I live at 2201 Pine Knoll Drive, Unit 2. And I have a clarifying question, and it was from the RWC board action of August 28th. Authorized the general manager to apply for consulting services through the Social Sector Solutions Program sponsored by the University of California, Berkeley Haas School of Business at a potential cost of $25,000 to be paid from the operating fund in 2026. There wasn't really any more information. I wondered what that was for. Thank you.
Are there any online speakers?
There are no forum speakers.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on to item number 8. It's our resident member committee reports, and the first item is the audit committee, and we have Sefton Boyer here, our new chair of the audit committee. Thank you, Sefton.
Yeah, I'm brand new to the audit committee and was drafted to become the chair before my first meeting. In any event, we had 2 items that came up that we made recommendations. One was we looked at the 2024 pension audit, looked fine, and so we're recommending that the board accept the plan audit as approved. We also unanimously agreed with the recommendation that the internal audit review be delayed until 2027. But we also unanimously recommended that the RWC staff present at our next January audit committee meeting a timeline to show how the activity was going to go in terms of making sure that that review or that audit would be completed in 2027. And we'll meet again in October to look at the engagement letters from CBIZ for the audit and the 401k audit.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for Sefton? All right, thank you. And Todd, I believe, was going to give us an overview of the pension plan audit? No?
Yeah, I don't think we actually had that attached, I don't believe. I'm happy to, though. As everyone's aware, and I'll just speak to the room for anyone that's online, the board decided to take action, actually sell out our defined benefit plan. We stopped taking contributions this December 1 in 2009. We were still paying into that annuity to a tune of $1 million a year. Obviously, the board, in its wisdom, decided to get rid of that liability on our side. And so we, over the last couple of years, it was actually a fairly involved process, went ahead and closed out our defined pension plan. We actually went out to bid, and the final bid was to Mutual of Omaha that bought that annuity from us. We had a liability on our books of about $1.5 million. Like I said, we were contributing to that plan over basically $1 million a year every year. So just so everyone knows the timing, all that transaction happened. And so in 24, the plan is so no longer, we have nothing to do with it, but the CBIZ did the final audit on the actual sale, the pension, and the final transactions that took place in '24. So that is obviously officially off our book. So the final audit, for your light reading, it does get a little into the weeds, I would say, on the annuity and the sale, but certainly it is a very clean audit that represents the final audit for that removal of that liability on our side, right? And so it is, officially completely off our books now. I mean, it was as of '25, but this is the last pension audit we have to do. And we are, as you'll see from the audit, it was a clean audit, and everything is I will say, though, there was, and you will see some non-cash adjusting entries on the regular audit. When we went through the regular audit, you will see some of the results of that pension that do show up as a loss on our income statement. It's a non-cash loss. It's a one-time event, basically adjustment to equity, getting that pension off our books from the equity side. And so it's a little complicated, but it's really a clean opinion, and we're moved past it. And like I said, when you actually see the audit adjustments go through, which is one of the things when we brought up earlier with the balance sheet, that was actually one of the biggest pending issues to run those changes through for '24, which will affect the equity on RWC. And so that's also why it was so important we get the audit done and get those audit adjustments run through, because it's a $7 million adjusting entry. It's a one-time adjustment, but like I said, it's non-cash adjustment. It's just moving that officially off our books. So, and like I said, if there's detailed questions on the pension, probably not the best environment, but I'm happy to dig into it. We did go over it with the audit committee, with the whole group. And I didn't have any questions really on the audit itself. I think it's just nice to have it behind us, and that there was no concerns brought up, and that all the sales and all the effort our third parties put in, like Milliman, was all done correctly, and we're clean from a legality and fiduciary standpoint.
Any questions, Dwight?
Todd, how much did the pension audit cost? And I guess we're going to save some money if that is no longer necessary.
We will. I'm waiting for the final bill. So it will be a savings. However, we are at the end year of the CBIZ 3-year engagement, right? So I expect to see some increases with inflation. We'll still continue to have the 401k audit. And I think if we've talked about, obviously, some people that were there obviously rolled in and we had more participation in the 401k plan, which is great. So we will see some savings, Dwight. Unfortunately, given the timing, I have asked McCarrett CBIZ to get us some temp numbers for next year as fast as she can. But unfortunately, given the timing on the final audit, I don't have those engagement numbers. They'll rebid the job for next year. I do see some increases, but hopefully there will be, $15,000 to $30,000 probably less from just the pension audit itself, but the rest of them could be comparably increased. So we'll just have to wait and see what the final number comes in.
Fortunately, there's no tariffs on that.
Correct. That is correct.
Not yet.
Yeah, and it is something they won't be doing any more going forward. So that is a great thing. It will be long-term savings regardless of who's doing the audit. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Todd? Do we have a motion?
I would like to move that that the board accept the pension audit as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, Dwight second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Deborah.
Certainly. Hamaji,
Yes?
Bentley,
Yes.
Hurt,
Yes.
Byram,
Yes.
Hildreth,
Yes.
Lair,
Yes.
Selden,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
and Yang.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
All right, thanks very much, Todd. Okay, we'll move on to the Finance Committee. Dan Ring is the chair of the Finance Committee. You've had a busy couple of months, Dan.
Good morning. We met on Tuesday, and Dwight, we agree with you 100%. We are anxiously looking forward to seeing a balance sheet and a cash flow and some financial statements that we can dig into and see some trends and so on and so forth. So Todd did promise those for next month, and hopefully we have them. We had a decent length meeting on Tuesday, and we discussed several items. The first one is that we unanimously recommend to the RWC board that the preliminary 2026 RWC budget, plus the 5 changes as noted to the budget, the Comcast, the IT telephone, the landscape turf maintenance, the Golf Pro Shop FTE increase, and the digital marketing position be approved. The committee also unanimously recommends to the RWC board that the employee compensation adjustment for all RWC and RPM employees be increased from 2% from 2.5% in the 2026 budget. The committee also unanimously recommends to the RWC board approval of the 2026 RPM budget as presented. Then the fun began. We had a very long discussion regarding the MTF fee and the potential increase from the current rate of $13,500 to a recommended rate of $18,000. Concerns were raised regarding sales impacts, resident perception, and sticker shock. Members emphasized the importance of amenities and clear communication of the fee's purpose, as well as the need to fund future capital projects, all critical. After much discussion, a motion was made to recommend to the RWC board to raise the MTF fee from $13,500 to $16,500. I'm sorry, to $16,000. Then it was amended to $16,500 with a $1,000 automatic annual increase. That motion passed. The committee also recommends to the RWC board approval of the expenditure for $15,937 to be spent on refurbishing the Rossmore Monument sign and authorize the general manager to execute an agreement with Golden Gate Signs. Thank you. Questions?
Any questions for Dan? Okay,
Okay,
thank you very much. All right, Jeff, can then you discuss the membership transfer fee?
So as Dan mentioned, there was a lively discussion and a significant amount of input in relation to the membership transfer fee and the recommendation to go to $18,000. The committee ultimately, as Dan mentioned, recommended an increase by April of 2026, or actually they didn't make a date, they left that up to the board, to go to $16,500 and then annually an increase of $1,000. The recommendation to increase the membership transfer fee is based on a couple of factors. The first factor is that the board did approve moving over the RWC facility maintenance account from the operating fund to the capital fund. And what that really represents is, and we'll talk about it a little bit more when we get to policy, but it is items that are more related to capital. They're over $5,000. They prolong the life of an asset. So those items will be moved over to the capital fund. And in the screen that you're looking at now, it reflects that adjustment. So in pink, you see RWC facility and property maintenance. It is a new expense of $850,000 and then escalates by 5% a year over this 10-year projection. You will see on the bottom of the screen, the MTF fee currently projected to go up to $14,000 and then $5,000 a year. Still based on 400 sales a year, generating the membership transfer fee. Just based on this, without changing anything, still funding our ongoing capital program, including machinery and equipment, ongoing upkeep of our facilities, those types of projects that occur annually. So all of those programmed in. You see that at the bottom, we start to fall below our target of $2 million in available cash fairly quickly and then actually go upside down in our available cash starting in 2028. So if we can go to the next slide there. What you see on the So what you see on the left-hand side of the spreadsheet is projects identified in the facilities master plan. These are projects that came up during the study, some of which are on a wish list, some of which are in a long-term plan. Some have actually fallen off that were part of the plan at the time, but board actions have gone in a different direction, such as the recycled water facility, the SWRF. The board made a decision to focus more on regional solutions rather than continue focusing on that study. So some of these projects actually have changed in nature, but it gives you a flavor of the types of projects that is of interest to the community and on the long-term plan. What you see now is that at the bottom, we have adjusted the membership transfer fee to $18,000 in 2025 or 2026, and then increase it by $500 a year. And you see at the bottom, the available cash balance begins to grow. So at no time do we fall below the $2 million available cash, and it begins to grow. The importance of that balance there is we can now start to look at some of these future projects that were identified in the facilities master plan. So if we can go then to the next slide. So this one, again, none of this has been approved. These funding in various years and amounts are more just to illustrate the cash that may be needed. A lot more discussion on the scope of a project, on the timing of the projects would need to take place, and that will take place year by year with the planning committee. This just gives you a kind of an illustration of what the cash would be needed as we start to populate the next 10 years with potential projects. So for example, if we do the back patio and ramps at $1, and then we escalate that out, it's about $210,000. If we look at $1 for doing major renovations, not the full tear down, rebuild, but we start to do some significant year by year renovations over about a 3-year period, a couple $1 million. And the list goes on. So all of those in the blue area are just some samples of those expenses, including renovation of Hillside for the one wing of Hillside out in 2035 at $4 million over 2 years and $500,000 for planning. 1964 building is going to need some significant renovation in time. Same with Dollar 1933 building, and then there's other projects. By populating those, if you go down to the bottom again, looking at the cash available, you still see that we maintain the $2 million target throughout the 10-year period, beginning with $18,000 and increasing by $500 a year. So that was kind of the justification for jumping to the 18 at this time. The discussion at the Finance Committee really revolved around kind of that significant increase all at once. Would that jeopardize sales? And there's been a lot of discussion. We have had some discussion with the realty groups about the impact. There's been, as part of the marketing study, some surveys on where people value the membership transfer fee compared to the coupon, compared to the value of having amenities that are well maintained, that are new and meet the current interest of residents that are here now, plus moving in the future. All of those factors kind of weighed into the discussion and where the ultimate recommendation landed. So I'm going to pause there and happy to answer any questions. I don't have a slide that shows the final recommendation and the cash implications of 16.5. It did end up, because you're going up 1,000 instead of 500, it does balance out somewhere, I believe it was 2030, but 2029. So happy to answer any questions.
Okay, questions? Dwight and then Janet.
And Jeff, thank you for thinking about the future, because, having buildings from 1933 and 1964, we have to be able to maintain those into the future, and having that long-term look is so important. One thing that you left out that I'm going to add in, the $750,000 for the trust maintenance, if I don't say trust anymore, the maintenance item is saving money on the coupon. I mean, that is super important. We're moving that over to capital and saving money on the coupon. So that's a plus to $750,000. The thing we haven't talked about is that the medical center used to generate $700,000 of rent every year. That stopped in 2021. And we never made up that loss in revenue from that rental income. We thought we had it sold. We thought it was going to be a big boom to the capital fund, and that's been a long process, not delivering on that. So those two items make up $1,450,000 shortfall in revenue in the capital fund. Increasing to $18,000 will generate $1.6 million. So it covers what we need to cover in terms of reducing the coupon and replacing the rent, in my opinion.
I have a question. I keep hearing starting this in April 2026 instead of January. What is the rationale for that? And is that going to be part of the motion when it starts?
So that is an item that's kind of at the discretion. The planning committee recommended April. The finance committee didn't give a recommendation on a date. We do want to try and give some time, some lead time in case a property is in escrow or hasn't closed, to work with the realty community to make sure that the new cost is implemented.
Thank you.
Adrian and then Roy.
Okay, I've been giving a certain amount of thought to this over the last few days. One of the things that's important to note is the $1,000 a year increase. It sounds like a lot, but it's $1,000 in approximately 20,000, which means it's about 5%. And that's the cost, that's inflation. I mean, we've been seeing that kind of inflation or more, in particular in construction costs in this area in Northern California. So basically keeping it at $1,000 a year it isn't raising it, it's keeping it the same. So we really need, I think, to see the $1,000 increase per year. I also thought a little bit about the magnitude of the $18,000. Pretty much every mutual here, your coupon is about $1,250 a month, $1,250 in that order of magnitude. Okay, 12 times $1,250 is $15,000 a year, plus your property tax, plus your PG&E bill. You're spending, everybody here is spending $20,000 to $30,000 a year to live here. That's just the basic cost. So the $18,000 is not remarkably larger, or, it's sort of in line with that. It's not a number that's remarkably larger. And so whether it's 16 or 18 or 20, quite frankly, I don't think it makes a difference, but that's my opinion.
I have two major concerns about this. Number one, when we transfer the maintenance fees into the capital, I think, I have not checked yet, but I think policy-wise, it's maybe against something. And also, we are just worried about the coupon money, and so we build all the expense to the future buyer, which is not fair either. And annually 1,000, all cost of living adjustment is not like that. Beyond those, I have personally found many projects being wasted money and wisely and never think about it. I have all those facts. I like the board to have a chance to review those and then realize that we can save without increase. Thank you.
Ted?
So I agree with Dwight on the 18. I think that that'll just get us up even, kind of like where we were, I was just on the board, I think, when we didn't have rent coming in. I think it was the year before me. And that there was some discussion way back then about that, and then that kind of fell off, and then nobody talks about it anymore, about all the money we're losing on that. So I think that 18 will get us where we're at. But Adrian, you brought up a point. You just says that 1,000 a year would keep us at a level of inflation. So in the projections that I saw Jeff doing, you're doing a $500 increase. So looking to the future, I don't want to start putting us in the hole again. So I'm wondering if it shouldn't be 18 with 1,000 instead of 18 with 500. That's just, I don't want to get back in a hole and then later on figure out, oh no, we need another $3,000 jump in this thing, and figure out, we should be able to figure out something now to keep us at the point we have to be going forward. At a certain point, whenever that'll be, when everything is built out and new, we got a new, hillside complex, and we have the new MOD or RPM, we have the different projects where it starts slowing down, then it can be looked at again if we don't need the money. But looking to the future, what is going on, I think that we should make a decision at this point so we don't have to come back to this again, if that makes sense. Put the right numbers in place.
Susan?
So, thank you, Adrian, for talking about the $1,000 in terms of the annual increment, because I totally agree with that, particularly with inflation and unknowns in the future. And I appreciate the discussion and rationale for the 18,000. I can see that, I can understand that. But having attended the Finance Committee, not being a member, just attending, this group had serious discussion about this matter. And I think the challenge between will it or will it not affect new buyers and or some of our residents who are selling and they need to sell to get out of here. How is it going to affect that? So I think I'd like to respect their discussion, suggesting the 16.5 for 2026 or whenever we could, as soon as possible, get that into place with the $1,000 per year in any case, no matter what number we decide on.
Mary?
I agree with Susan. I was in favor of the 18,000, seeing the necessity and the long-term benefits. I listened very carefully, again, not being a member at the Finance Committee, and learned that there are different questions brought to the amount and well experienced. Given that we would achieve the build-out at 2029, I see that as a very potential way of satisfying both sets of concerns. So I would be in favor of the 16.5 plus 1,000. And that's a change in what I believed going into the meeting.
I want to just add my 2 bits here. I've been following long-term planning for 4 or 5 years, we're working our way toward true long-term planning. It's been a step-by-step process. What I've seen is there's never enough money to do the maintenance and to do the upgrades that we require on 40, 50-year-old plus buildings. We all know deferred maintenance is not great. And every year we have this wish list that we can't accomplish. And it's just going to get worse as we go on. So what I see here with the 18,000 is staff putting together a true long-term plan. It's feasible, it works out to get the projects done in a reasonable amount of time while still maintaining the necessary $2 million cash balance. I am in favor of that 18. First year might be a little slow, but I think new buyers, I don't think they're going to bat an eye at that at some point, especially if they can finance it or incorporate it into their loan. So I'm promoting the 18. Dwight.
Well, I just wanted to bring up the financing option. And Jeff, what is that option?
So any new buyer has the option to finance over a 7-year period the membership transfer fee.
At a reasonable interest rate?
Yes.
Through RWC or with their own finance people?
Through RWC.
Okay.
I also listened to the Finance Committee discussion, and that it was very detailed. But I still think the 18 is the way to go. I think when a prospective buyer looks at the difference between 16.5 and 18, I can't imagine that that's really going to make that much difference to them. They might see a big difference between 13.5 and 18, but 16.5 and 18, I don't think is going to make that much difference.
And I agree with that. We're talking about a difference of $1,500 as opposed to the potential for not having the funding that's needed for both maintenance and the augmentation of the facilities coming.
Any other comments? Ted?
So I did a little survey on my own of a bunch of people I do activities with, golf and different things. And none of them said, some of them came in 10 years ago, 5 years ago, some of them less than a couple of months. Nobody said that the MTF was something that they concerned themselves about when they looked at what the return was on the investment and what they could do with it, in all of the availabilities of all the amenities around here for everything they could do. So with that, I would like to make a motion, a recommendation to increase the MTF to $18,000 with a $1,000 a year bump, and starting April 1st, 2026.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second from Dwight. Any other discussion? I would just like to add, did we want to increase it 1,000 a year, or do we want to increase it 500 a year like we were doing?
Well, based on what I think 1,000 a year is the number that we need to hit, because if you look at, you can look at inflation and then you can look at construction costs. They're not on the same level of increase. Construction costs is way faster than inflation. So I think that, we have to, when you talk about inflation at 5%, I'm really thinking about, well, maybe construction costs is more. And
okay.
So I think that it's
right.
Fair.
Thank you. All right, any other discussion? Susan?
Just really quickly, I'm totally in support of the 1,000 increase. So even if I vote against it, it's not about the $1,000 increase. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Any other discussion? Okay, Deborah, could you do a roll call, please?
Certainly. Hamachi?
Yes?
Bentley?
Yes.
Hurt?
Yes.
Byram?
Yes.
Hildreth,
No.
Lair,
Yes.
Selden,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Yang.
No.
It carries.
Okay, thanks, everyone. I'm sorry? Now we'll go to the Golf Advisory Board with Burke Ferrari, who's our chair of that committee.
Good morning. Quickly, two things. First, membership as of the September, 768. That's a slight increase from the month before. And then an update on the pig damage to the golf course. We have heard that last week, 5 pigs were trapped up in Mutual 68. Since that time, there have been no new damage to the golf course. So fingers crossed. In the meantime, the grounds crew is working diligently to repair the existing damage. Any questions? Dwight?
So just an update for you, Burke. I live in Mutual 68. There are still pigs around, and there's additional damage. So I think Mutual 68 is looking to Mark Heptig's budget to help trap the next crew of pigs. It's not an inexpensive thing to do.
Yeah, well, sorry to hear that for 68, but so far we haven't seen any new damage in the golf course.
Okay, thank you very much, Burke. Any questions for him? Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to the board committee reports, item 9. Dwight, can you give us an update on planning?
Sure. So at our planning committee meeting, Ann Matola provided an update on the status of all the capital projects. Her report is in the agenda packet for those who are interested. The committee discussed documenting the capital projects process that Jeff mentioned in his coffee with residents, and what criteria are used to prioritize those projects by staff, committee members, and the board. Draft proposals were reviewed and will be refined for the next meeting. The goal is to provide members, staff, and board members with a clear outline of how capital projects are identified, processed, and prioritized. In addition, the committee unanimously agreed to recommend to the board an increase in the member transfer fee. Thank you, board. Discussion was held on updating the Rossmore signage at the corner of Tice Valley Boulevard and Rossmore Parkway to consistently brand Rossmore Walnut Creek. The committee recommended to the board to approve an expenditure of $15,000 from the capital fund for the signage update. This item will be discussed later in the board meeting.
Okay, any questions for Dwight? All right. We'll move on. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 9B, the policy. Mary, can you give us an overview?
Thank you. Thank you very much. On October 17, the policy committee met to consider revisions to 3 policies. I'd like to ask Jeff to give us the details at this time.
Thank you, Mary. So we will start with policy 102.3. This is a follow-up to the action that the board took on August 28th, and we've been talking about throughout this morning, where we moved the RWC facility and property maintenance budget from operating to the capital fund. There is a existing policy, 102.3, that talks about allocation of revenue and expenses between operating and the capital. So what hits the coupon and what is paid for from the membership transfer fee. I'd like to start off by, we can scroll down there, Jeff. Yep, there you go. So in your packet and what's on the screen there is the list of typical projects, and this is what is in the 2025 operating budget currently, that are being moved over to the capital fund. These are items that cost over $5,000, that are items that prolong the, or agreements, not necessarily a tangible item, or agreements that cost over $5,000 that are intended to prolong or protect the asset that they're being worked on. For example, street maintenance, we have slurry seal, and we have our capital grind and replace pavement. The slurry seal is an item that takes place, definitely prolongs the life of the asset. Concrete repair. This is where we go out and do significant work on sidewalks that may be damaged. Utility maintenance work, again, stuff that comes up that may not be programmed or planned on, but that typically would cost more than $5,000. Valley-wide, we have equipment such as HVAC systems, our hot water heaters, and all of those types of systems that may break during the year or when they're not anticipated. This would be not simple repair of those that we would do out of the operating, but this would be replacement of those equipment. So we have a complete failure and we need to actually replace a piece of equipment. Those are equipment that cost more than $5,000. Painting and staining, again, this is not where we go and we may paint a hall or an office. This is where we do like the staining of the table tennis building, that is all wood, or the event center, that is all wood. Those contracts typically are in the $30,000 to $45,000 range. So this is for doing our main contracts and so forth. Furniture replacement, this wouldn't be just replacing a chair that may break or a couch. This is going in and looking at one of our clubhouses and doing updates of maybe the lobby furniture for that clubhouse, where collectively the furniture costs more than $5,000, not individually. Grout maintenance would be where we go into a locker room, a kitchen that we have where there's a significant amount of grout in one, and we do a deep cleaning and grout replacement and maintenance. So you're looking at a contract that is over $5,000. Same with open space and tree maintenance and defensible space. These are contracts that definitely exceed $5,000 that protect the valley. Trails maintenance is one that is kind of right on the cusp, but it is not intended to be just our routine maintenance. Routine maintenance are items that we would continue to budget out of our trust property maintenance budget that you've looked at during your workshop. So those items where it would be a routine nature, our staffing, everything else would come out of that fund. So if we could then go to the policy 102.3.
Jeff, could I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So I hear what you're saying about the majority of the items, but when it comes to tree maintenance and defensible space and trails maintenance, I just don't see how those are capital items. I don't see how that extends the life of any asset. And to me, those are operating expenses. And we have money in the operating budget for tree maintenance. When a tree falls on the golf course or when there are big trees, that we have budget allocated for that in operating. So it becomes a gray area, especially for you and staff to determine, let's make that capital. Oh no, is that operating? So to me, the open space items do not belong on this list.
So typically, the tree maintenance, that is where we're actually removing trees that we may not have anticipated. A removal of one of those trees could cost as much as $20,000 to bring a crane in and actually remove those. The ongoing trimming and upkeep of the trees, that belongs in capital, in operating and is budgeted as such. So there is a pretty good distinction of where those would fall. Defensible space is where we go through and we actually do the disking of the pathways. You can certainly say that it protects the valley, but is not necessarily a capital expense, so that certainly you can debate where that belongs.
Mary?
Jeff, since the term inflation has come up several times, a question I should have asked in the policy meeting but didn't, so I'll ask it now. Who established the $5,000 limit, and is it ever re-examined as inflation increases?
So I believe that is more of an accounting where at 5,000 it is eligible for capital or extends the life of the asset.
Okay, this is a first reading, but are there any, we're not doing a motion on this today.
Correct.
But are there any other questions?
If you look at the policy, I'm happy to answer any questions in relation to the red line of the policy, but it pretty much aligns with what we just discussed of what would then fall under either the RWC capital in terms of revenue and expense, and then operating on the flip side. These adjustments allow for really the movement of that fund over to capital.
Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt you, sorry.
That's okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Jeff. Right now, I think we'll take a 5-minute break before we go into item number 11. So we'll return at 10:20. All right, Jeff, we're going to start with item number 11, our proposed RWC and RPM operations budget.
Okay, thank you very much. First, before I get into the details, I would like to thank all of the staff that has been involved in preparing this, from Todd's team and Amanda, and then all of the senior managers and the managers that contributed to the detail within this, gave careful consideration to their various line items, level of service, in order to produce this document. I also like to thank the board for agreeing to fund over the last several years the transition to our new ERP system and Workday Adaptive and all those tools. It has made this process much easier, and we look forward to producing a more comprehensive and detailed budget as we move forward. So thank you to everybody that has been involved. What we are presenting today and is being recommended by the Finance Committee is the RWC and RPM budgets for 2026. They are based on the level of service that is currently being offered for every department. So it does not change pretty much day to day what you would see at the fitness center, at the golf operations. It is the same level of service that we currently offer. The recommendation from the Finance Committee included an adjustment to Comcast. We have an agreement with Comcast that their services are tied to the basic plan for Walnut Creek and can go up a maximum of 4% per year. We were notified of an increase, and then after our budget workshops, there was an adjustment down in that. So there is actually a savings reflected of $118,566. As discussed during the budget workshops, we adjusted the line for telephone down $33,000. There was an adjustment made to landscape turf maintenance of $2,500. We also took the liberty of including the 2 recommended positions that there was a straw vote on. These are still up for your consideration, but included in the computation, the increase from a 0.6 to a full-time, so an increase of 0.4 FTE for a golf position. And then the addition of the digital marketing position at full-time. With those changes, the computation comes to $28,104,313, or a year-over-year decrease of $3.71. That really is attributed to what we discussed just a minute ago, the move of the facility and property maintenance from the operating over to the capital, which saved about $9.76 on the coupon, as well as the elimination of the current $5 million earthquake policy that would not be continued into 2026. So this shows a savings of $3.71. We did have a recommendation additionally, as Dan mentioned earlier, of adding 0.5 to the COLA for both RPM and RWC employees. So that is based on the CPIU number from the most recent reading, and that goes up to 2.5% then from 2. We don't have that computation added in here. If the board accepts that recommendation, we would add that in, and I believe Todd has what that number would be.
So if you were to add in to go from 2 to 2.5, you'd see that $3.71 you'll see there with the changes, that would drop 30 cents, right? So basically you'd be looking at instead of going down 371 with the current changes, you would have an extra, 56,000 or 70 cents increase on the proposed changes. So all said, all in, if you were to look at the total coupon before the changes, a reduction of 330. We make all those changes instead of going to 371, you'd be back at basically the same. You'd be 30 cents the other direction. So 371 would go to.
That was not clear at all, Todd. So,
Okay.
so do it
So
in
you're gonna
terms
add,
of the.
yeah, so you're going to add
Just
31,
if you
30,
could please
30,
tell us what the
31
new
cents.
coupon amount would be. That'd be
31
great.
cents more.
No, the new coupon amount.
351.10.
351.11.
You're at 350.81 right now with the changes up there, right? So you would go to 70 cents more, so 351.80. 351.92, sorry.
I'm really confused.
Okay.
You
So
said
the-
30
the
cents.
70 cents. You're going to add 70 cents back into the mix. 70 cents. So I was comparing it to the original budget. The 30.50.81 would add 70 cents to that number.
Give us a moment.
So are we looking at a 370 decrease then, or a $3 decrease? I mean, a $3 decrease?
We're looking at a $3 decrease
Yeah.
Yeah,
year over year.
year over year. So we'd go to 350.
Okay. All right, I think we need a motion on that 2.5.
Okay.
I'll make a motion on the whole thing.
The whole thing?
Why
Okay.
not?
Wait, are there any other questions about the budget at this point? RPM, RWC? Okay, go
So
ahead.
I move that we accept the Finance Committee recommendation for the 2026 RWC portion of the coupon to be $351.51. $351.51 to include the
81.
proposed changes as well as the 0.5 increase in COLA for both, or for all RWC and RPM employees, including the general manager.
Okay, do we have a
I'll
second?
second.
Ted seconds. And any further discussion? Okay. Deborah, roll call, please.
Certainly. Hamachi?
Yes?
Bentley?
Yes.
Hurt?
Yes.
Byram?
Yes.
Hildreth?
Yes.
Blair?
Yes.
Selden?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes?
And Yang.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
All right. Thank you very much, Todd.
So I will say that we will finalize that computation to make sure it reflects exactly what you just agreed to.
And can you reissue that coupon computation?
We absolutely will, and that'll be part of the published
Okay,
amount.
great. All right. Quite the process. All right, moving on to item 11B.
So I
Ann
don't
Peters.
believe the motion made by Walker was inclusive of the RPM budget. It was just RWC, correct?
That is correct.
So we still need to address the RPM portion of the budget.
Need a motion.
Okay.
So I had a question on the RPM budget. So during the budget meetings, we identified $130,000 in professional services that had been funded by the surplus from 2022, and I thought it was going to be taken out, but it was not. So I just wonder where that stands.
Do you want to? Okay, so the professional services within that, we did go back and do some initial, but that really requires some significant analysis because we're going back to 2022, talking about a surplus that was actually generated prior to that. There was 2 different years that there was a funding from RWC to RPM for the ERP system. What actually transpired, we need to analyze. What actually was expended, what then was rebudgeted. So it is before we make an adjustment to this budget, we need to have a full accounting of all of those transactions that actually took place beyond what was discussed at the time. So there is a question about how much actually was transferred from RPM or RWC to RPM, what was expended, what was rebudgeted, and from what years from that surplus. So we have some significant investigation into that item to make sure that we do have the resources needed for 2026. We would recommend that we retain that amount. If it turns out we don't need those funds, then obviously that would go towards the surplus at the end of the year.
And so I guess tied in with that is that the deficit for RPM last year was $300,000 less than we had anticipated in the budget. So there may actually be funds to either cover this or to be refunded to the mutuals because RPM operates at a nonprofit, so any surplus goes back to them.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that is included in our new management agreement as well. So what we are recommending and what is the recommendation from the Finance Committee is approval of the RPM budget as presented, including the 2.5% increase that you just approved as well for the COLA from 2%.
All right. Do we have a motion?
I can make a motion. I move that the board accept the RPM budget as presented with the addition of an extra 0.5% increase in salaries and wages.
Sorry, Carol seconds. Any other discussion? All right, roll call please, Deborah.
Certainly. Hamaji?
Yes?
Bentley?
Yes.
Hurt?
Yes.
Byram?
Yes.
Hildreth?
Yes.
Blair?
Yes.
Selden?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
And Yang?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Next up is Ann Peterson on item 11B regarding my Rossmore redesign.
Thank you. Just as a reminder, we are splitting our website. So Rossmore.com will become a marketing website for prospective buyers, and My Rossmore will become the one that's designed for residents. So last time we talked about the work that the outside vendor is going to do on Rossmore.com. This time we're talking about just My Rossmore. And I want to emphasize up front that what we're discussing today is a front-facing, publicly accessible website for the residents. This is the part that staff is building, so this is the part that our community can actually weigh in on. So first of all, we're driving this by our brand. That means our brand name will be all over the website. We're looking at very specific colors, our logos. We want this to be very cohesive with Rossmore.com. So we want them to kind of be a married couple so that they look like they belong together. We also are going off of the edict that came from the marketing task force. They want very user-friendly content, and they want this to be resident service driven. So what we're doing is we're building a website around our resident service pieces. That will be golf for things like tee times, recreation and fitness for buying tickets, booking classes, and then gate passes so that you can get your guests in the front gate. So when we start looking at what the content's going to be, we have our higher level sections, things like amenities, services, facilities, all coming over from rossmore.com. Below that, you then get a little bit more granular, clubhouses, libraries, parks. Below that, you are now at Hillside, Dollar. If you see up on the screen, that is what we call a cluttered mess. That's kind of what's become rossmore.com's life. So this is what we want to change. So we're looking at building a content strategy that starts first with those resident services. Golf, again, is where you're going to make or cancel your tee times. Recreation and fitness, this is where you will buy your event tickets, your book excursions, submit reservation request forms, book recreation classes, make personal training appointments, and book your fitness classes. Gate passes, this is where you will manage your front gate guest list and send your front gate pass to guests. All of these are coming from third-party platforms, means they're already designed. It's an operating system that will help us to do these resident service features. This question has come up a lot. There's been 2 questions, so I need to answer them today so that everybody knows. Can residents reserve rooms online? Not at this time. Can residents see which rooms are open? Not at this time. It's not a hard no. Everything with these systems will evolve over time. But when we roll it out, it is a no on both of those. Okay, so let's start digging into what My Rossmore will look like. So as I mentioned, on the home page, you're going to see some high-level sections, starting with something like facilities. So you go from the homepage and you click on facilities, you get to clubhouses. Now the clubhouse page will have information about the event center, Dollar, Gateway, all in one location. We want to minimize the number of times a resident has to click on the website to get to their information. So we're trying to design everything with 2 clicks. Sometimes there will be documents where it's necessary for a 3rd. This is what our homepage, right now, this is all a draft design, and marketing has already said, oop, we don't like the blue filter on the photos, that will come out. We are gonna have those granular conversations about what the design should look like, but this is the draft as of right now. So the homepage will have very prominently the links to those resident services. On the left side, we will have a box for latest news. So this will be alerts. The roads have closed. We have water outage or electric outage throughout Rossmore. That's where those sort of high-level things are going to go, including things like the golf course is closed to walkers because of tournaments. We want to make that information really front and center on the residents page. We are also, one of the things the marketing task force identified is that they really like the tile approach look with a website. They felt that was most user-friendly. So that's what we're moving to, is more of a tiled approach. So we're emphasizing facilities, services and amenities, and then when you get to the bottom of the page, because everyone always has to go hunt to find out how to get to our board, how to get to our mutuals, we're going to make that more prominent on our homepage. You'll also notice over in the right-hand corner, you see where it has those little buttons for golf, recreation, fitness, and gate passes. Those, again, are those links to the resident services. As you go down the page, it stays with you. So you never have to go, wait, where did those go? They're always going to be there. And then the last part is the footer. This is kind of your constant information. It doesn't really change. It's the stuff that gets a lot of clicks. How do you contact us? Where's our phone directory? Employment. One thing that's already going to change, that RWC vault, that's the mutual financials. We'll actually call it that. We will change some names throughout. And then the sign up for Nixle. So this is your homepage setup for right now. If you come to facilities and you click on clubhouses, what the page then looks like is a brief introduction about what the clubhouses are. And then as you scroll through, it will have the actual information for the clubhouses. I do want to point out, right now I know that the font is small. It's because we don't know yet what will be the font or the font size. We want that to mirror rossmore.com. We're having that conversation. So again, this is just a draft. So as you scroll through, again, each clubhouse will be listed. Now I talked about sometimes there'll be a third click that you have to do. Here's an example of a third click. If you click on resident info or reservations, rental info will get you the PDF that explains the information about the rental for that particular clubhouse. You click on reservations, it brings you to the conditions and guidelines PDF, the application, the room fees. So again, that's how it's structured within these different pages. This is an example of a golf page, which is a little bit more contained. So I could just give you an example of what it looks like, because this is probably our most designed out page we've got so far. So again, you do have the tabs at the top that'll take you to the rules. You do have a link right up top that says schedule your tee time, because we know a lot of people, that's what they want. A brief description of the courses as well as photos of what they look like. We're working on this box, but we want an important note box because we get asked all the time about walking on the golf course. We need to make that very clear up front, so we're doing that on this page. And then again, we're retaining that tiled approach. So the pro shop information goes in a tile, the practice facilities goes into a tile. Again, on this page, the golf one will continue to scroll down the page as you go. And instead of having to click to find the tournaments and the fees, it will be built right on the page. So again, everybody will be able to see the information very quickly. There's our tournament schedule. So the other thing that is sort of dictating how we build out the site, we have been collecting over the last couple of years the questions we get asked the most, the things that seem to confuse the residents the most. So we're trying to build things in that address some of those questions and concerns. So for example, with the work orders, we get asked a lot, well, how do we know when the work order desk is open? Now you do. So your regular hours, 8 to 4, after hours, and then you know who to contact. It says right there on the home page for the work orders from RWC Property Management. It will also tell you what services are provided. And throughout the website, we will have these contact us boxes that are designed and set up so that the email goes directly to the affected apartment. So for example, if you don't need an appointment, you're just telling someone a sprinkler broke, here's the form you can use to do that. So what we're doing, you've already kind of seen this, but I kind of want to show you the difference. Right now, our website is a bunch of lists. We list everything. By moving to this different format, this tiled format, we're able to give a better description of what things are and a very easy way for people to click and move on. So this is just the example of, again, that's what alterations look like. Whoops, sorry, go backwards. I got a little ahead of myself there. So this is what alterations look like. This is the different format. The other thing that we're emphasizing is resident services, because this is key to everything that we're doing in Rossmore. So this is an example of counseling's page, where you'll be able to quickly see their contact information and when they're open, and it will also give a short snippet of the services that are offered, as well as the programs that are offered. And it shows you who the team is. It's real important to put faces for the folks who you are going to be engaging with on a regular basis so you know who they are and how you can contact them. The other thing we're emphasizing again is being user-friendly. So this is our contact us page. Again, we have a contact box so that they can quickly send a message, but we also let them know when our key things open, what's our information phone number. And we've tried to make the phone directory easier to navigate, but this is a case where you're going to have to keep the list because it's a list of phone numbers. But the way we're doing it now is pick the section that you want, you click on the little plus button, and now it's going to open to the actual full list of your phone directory so you can find the number that you need, and emails when there's emails associated. So the other thing that we are massively overhauling is the mutuals page. Right now, the mutuals work on rossmore.com as a flyout that is almost impossible for everybody to use. So what we're doing is every mutual will get its own page. And on the page, it will list the board officers with their contact information. It will have the quick look information that you need for the mutuals. There will be a contact us box for our mutual board coordinator. And then when you scroll down, you get to a whole new setup that's more of a database-driven setup for our documents. So you'll be able to search in the search box for agenda or something topic related that happens in that meeting. You'll now be able to search for it in the box. You also have the ability to still look up all of the agendas, all the minutes, all the governing docs, all the useful information by clicking on one of these tabs. If you're looking for a specific year, some people tell us, oh, but I need something from 5 years ago. Now you have the ability to filter down by year so you're not looking at literally 80 documents. But the feature I like the most, if you click on this little calendar, it actually brings up the calendar and now you can go find the agenda that you need for the month in which that meeting is going to be held. So we are in the process of working with the mutuals. We've already done a small presentation to the mutual presidents, asking them to talk with their boards about anything they want on this page or changed on this page, because again, mutuals is one of our most popular pages on rossmore.com for our residents. So what comes next? So now we're in the feedback stage. We've started to build out the website. Now we really need to get the community's input on what they want on myrossmore.com, because this is the one that belongs to them. So we are going to do a full review with the marketing task force. We did a small one this past week. We're going to do a much bigger one in our next session. We had talked at marketing about doing a town hall, but we've since had a conversation about how that might be too big a forum right now up front. So we're going to really shift and do more like feedback sessions and focus groups. So for example, I'm going to talk with the Activities Council on October 10th, drilling down on what the clubs need from My Rossmore. There will be other focus groups. We'll advertise them in the Rossmore News to really, again, start to dig into what information do you need from the service level, from the amenities level. We'll invite people to come in, provide their feedback, then we'll take all of the feedback that we get, redesign, and come back to everybody again to do the second pass. It's also going to be important we have a follow-up discussion at the end of the month at President's Forum with the mutuals so that we can now get that second round of feedback to really finalize those pages. And we'll also need to do department reviews to make sure we have everything that the department needs on those pages. So it's an intensive feedback for over probably the next 2 months, October and November, so that we can start to finalize everything in December. So that's the rundown. Any questions?
Dwight.
And thank you so much for moving us into the current century. The homepage, I'm glad you mentioned property management and mutuals, but I didn't see them on the homepage. Did I miss that? Or are they a tab?
Yes, so we haven't, part of this is, again, we need to figure out what all of the pages are and what that structure looks like. So they're coming, that part is still in the work it phase. I do want to give a shout out. Javier Roman is my website content manager. What you're seeing with this website, he built. He has spent, we did start a little before marketing was done with their work because we kind of knew where this was going. He has lived and breathed this for the last 3 months. And so again, not everything is built. It will be. But it's good to know up front, yes, okay, if our residents want that on the homepage, we make sure it's on the homepage. So that feedback's helpful. Thank you.
Adrian.
First of all, I think this really looks great. It's a huge improvement over what we've got today. Will the work order connect to the online work order capability so that you can look up a work order and see its status, et cetera?
So that's one thing that's important to also talk about up front. This website is going to have to come in stages. There's only so much we can do with the limited resources and the time that we have. So everything is sort of phased out. Phase 1, what you currently have accessible on the websites is what gets rolled out with phase 1. In many cases, it will be more functional. You'll be able to find things easier, but it won't have that sort of next level of service. When we get to phase 2, we do start to ask the questions of, is there a way to connect the work orders so that there's a tracking system? Is there a way that we can provide communication tools? Because that's the number one thing we're hearing with feedback. We want to be able to communicate better within our clubs, within our mutual, just with each other. And so we are looking at those. We've actually identified things that will help us with those, but understanding our very, very, very busy timeline, we've moved those off to phase 2. So that would be the second half of next year that we're working on those. In particular, the communications tool, we're figuring that's going to take us at least 6 to 9 months to roll out.
Susan.
Thank you, Ann. And having attended the marketing task force, not as a member, but as a visitor, you already made changes on here, so that's great to see. And I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but I just want to pose one question. So when we go on to the clubhouses and we can click on the reservations and see the form that we're currently filling out, and we have an online form so we can fill that out online right now when we're reserving rooms. Will we be able to access that form, or will you direct us to some other location to find that form?
No, the plan is to put the form directly on my Rossmore. We, again, keep in mind, I haven't gotten to the department review level yet, so I have not had a conversation, for example, with Z and with Megan about how that might work. So I don't want to get too far ahead. I have ideas for how it can work, but I want to talk to them about that workflow before we lock anything in. But I will say that we want as much as possible for everything to live on my Rossmore. The only things that really won't are, again, those resident service pieces, because those are outside platforms. But even within those platforms, we're looking at ways, how do we direct them back to my Rossmore when they've completed their transaction?
Thank you.
Ted?
So you mentioned clubs a couple of times. Some clubs are, it's a big expense to a club to build a website in there. And I know this is down the line and it's visionary, by the way. I really like this whole thing. But is the club, are they going to be able to have their own area? And maybe get away from, do I use Wix or do I use this, and who's going to manage it and who's going to build it for me and all this stuff? Is there going to be something for them in there?
Yes, so that is phase 2. And one of the things that we quickly identified is that most of these clubs, you couldn't just say, here you go, build it yourself. They're going to need us to do it for them. So that's why that has to be phase 2. With 200 clubs, and Javier and I right now are the only 2. With the web content digital creator, they'll be part of this as well. But we're going to have to sort of one-on-one help each of the clubs. But what I will tell you is the platform we're looking at gives you can have as many spaces, is what they call them, as many spaces as you want. So I can give the chess club their own space. I can give First Mutual their own space. I can give the recreation department their own space. And what you do is you determine within your club, your mutual, your department, who's going to moderate those spaces. We show them, we set it up for them, and then show them how to use it. And then they go and decide within their club level or mutual level how much they want to do. So within there, you can do posts, so you can tell them about upcoming events. You can turn on commenting so that they can comment about different things. There's a messaging system, which means everybody, for example, in a club who signs up and becomes a member can become part of that email group and get the email notifications every time anything comes out. We have those levels. Within this system, you can also connect different plugins that would allow you to do things like, do you want to use this for your membership dues? You pay a small fee, get that plugin connected, now you can do your membership fees also through this space. So there's a lot of different levels to this. What we need to do is, once we're done being in the weeds over here, is to go over there and look at what it looks like and talk again with the clubs, get the feedback for how they would utilize these spaces so that we can build 3 or 4 templates that they then come and say, we want that one. We set it up and then help them kind of go off and use it. So again, second half of next year is when that will start.
Okay, any other questions? So just to summarize and reiterate, this is just a draft to give
Correct.
everybody an idea of what's coming. And then 2, it's going to be a phased approach.
Correct.
It's not all going to happen at one with one big install.
Correct.
And then number 3, that basically the business functions that residents use with the departments, that function or that procedure is going to remain the same until an advanced phase.
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, and the fourth
understands
piece,
that.
we're not just going to roll this out and go, good luck. There is a rollout plan that will, once we do get close to launching this, we'll do site testing with residents. After the staff has been trained, we'll do a town hall to really show everybody what's coming and how it works. We're going to try to partner with the computer club to see if they can help us get people initially set up, especially with the resident services piece. So there's a bigger game plan coming next year. But like I said, right now, I'm living in the feedback bucket. So that's kind of where my headspace is right now.
All right, good. Thank you very much. We're excited. All right, moving on to item 11C. Oh, Ann, don't go away. We're going to talk about the Rossmore Monument.
So the other part of what the marketing task force did was to talk about the brand name and changing the brand name to Rossmore Walnut Creek. A lot of that could be done internally with very little cost. There was some internal signage that had to be changed. That's all been changed. It's things like the logo on the uniform, what we're using for letterhead, our documents. We are marching our way through making those changes internally. But there was one thing that the marketing task force identified that is a bigger cost item, and that's the Rossmore Walnut Creek monument sign outside the gate. So the question became whether or not we really wanted that Rossmore Walnut Creek name on the sign. So the marketing task force had asked us to look at 2 options. One, what if we completely demolish the sign and put a new sign in? What could it look like? What would it cost? Or 2, what if we just refurbished what's there? So in the process of getting those bids, what we found out is option 1 is not going to happen. If we demolish the existing sign, then Walnut Creek is going to want us to follow the rules for directional signs, which means you get a fun little green with white lettering sign. It's kind of ugly. We don't want that. So what we did is we kind of put those bids aside. We focused on the refurbished ones. And so this is the design of what the refurbished sign would look like. It's basically the sign we have now. It would be power washed, so it would go back to looking like the white concrete instead of the gray concrete. It would be fully repainted. They would take that top portion out and put a temporary directional sign in for a couple of weeks as they go and repaint the sign in the Rossmore green instead of, no one's quite sure what color green is out there right now, but it will be our actual green color. And then they'll be adding the brass letterings for Walnut Creek. It's still not an inexpensive project. It's still just under $16,000 to do that, and that was the least expensive. That almost $16,000 includes the actual project, doing all of the work, putting in some new landscaping around it so that it looks, again, pretty. But it's also the taxes. There is some permitting required because you're doing a temporary directional sign, and the contingency that's built in that. The planning committee did recommend this. 2 on the planning committee felt like it was important to be consistent with the naming and that this is your first impression coming into Rossmore. But 1 on the planning committee did point out it is a lot of money to be investing into just the front entrance sign. So now the question is before you as to whether or not you want us to be branded as Rossmore Walnut Creek as you come into the community.
Okay, questions for Ann? Adrian?
Well, this isn't exactly a question for Ann, but this is the planning committee member who was against it. You know, I still can't get my head around spending 15 grand for it. You drive in, as I drove in yesterday afternoon, I carefully looked at it, And it's hard even to see, quite frankly, because it's only 3 feet tall. There's a giant utility cabinet behind it that's a different green, a proper utility cabinet, so it's an ugly green, and it sort of dominates. And of course, you're paying attention to, are there pedestrians? Is this car coming this way or that? I just don't think people really see that sign, quite frankly. And having to spend $15,000 to put Walnut Creek underneath it just seems an inappropriate use of our money.
But maybe that's the point, that changing the color would make it pop a little bit more. No. Okay. Susan, and then Janet and Ted.
You know, looking at the $16,000, that's less than what will be one of the membership transfer fees. So just noting that, I think it's interesting that during one of the conversations we've had about this, it was noted that many people do not recognize that Rossmore's in Walnut Creek. Maybe they think it's in Lafayette, Alamo, who knows. So I don't think the cost is that significant. I think the marketing task force would really like to see this, and I think adding Walnut Creek is useful information.
Have you looked into what it would cost just to power wash it? And that could make it pop. I don't know how old the paint is. But
yeah, the one concern about power washing, you see where you have the logo in there? There's enough paint chipping in there that if you power wash that, you're going to also have to paint the logo. So you'd be looking at a twofold thing. If you decide that for refurbishing, you don't want to put Walnut Creek on there, you just want to power wash and touch up the logo, I can absolutely come back to you and tell you what the cost for that would be. But that would be a twofold thing. You will destroy the logo if you just try to power wash.
So I kind of agree with Adrian's perception of the sign when he comes in. But Adrian, you've been here a long time. You know where you're going when you drive in. You know? And so I've been here 22 years. Sometimes I go around that corner, I don't even notice the sign. But what I think of is first impressions of first buyers coming in here who are going to be looking for the sign when they come in. They're going to be driving along and they're going to see that. What we have now is tired. It looks tired when you look at it. The concrete doesn't even, it looks like we've had a lot of dogs visiting it. It just needs to be spiffed up. And while doing it, to put to make it nicer, also identifying this as Walnut Creek, it takes it to a different level. You know, and I'm not going to throw out names of cities, but if you drop a name of a city here and a name of a city here, you're going to say, oh, you know, that's a nice place to live. So I really think that this goes along with our full marketing program to keep Rossmore fresh and new, and I think it needs to be done.
So if I could just tack on to that, in the marketing task force, you know, there was a lot of discussion about the word premier, and the marketing task force said, we don't really want to characterize Rossmore as a premier community. We want to characterize it as a leading community for active adults. But the association with the city name of Walnut Creek denotes premier. So when we combine Rossmore, Walnut Creek, all of a sudden we've achieved that premier status by attaching ourselves to the reality that we're in Walnut Creek. And like Susan said, you drive through the county to get here, unincorporated areas on both sides, you don't really know that you're in Walnut Creek. So I think this is essential to be consistent with all of our standardized branding.
I agree with Susan and, well, everybody who's for it. Sorry, Adrian, not you. But one of the things when you look at this sign, the color behind the Rossmore is, I actually love that color, but I think if you put the Rossmore green behind that, that Rossmore Walnut Creek is really going to stand out. And I really think we need to do this.
Well, I'm ready to make a motion if we're done discussing. I recommend to the board to refurbish the Rossmore Monument sign for an expenditure not to exceed $15,937 from the RWC Capital Fund, and to authorize the general manager to execute an agreement with Golden Gate Signs for the project.
I second.
All right, I think Ted seconded it. And any further discussion? All right, roll call, please, Deborah.
Certainly. Hamaji?
Yes?
Bentley?
Yes.
Hurt?
Yes.
Byron?
No.
Hildreth?
Yes.
Lair?
Yes?
Selden?
Yes.
Walker?
Yes.
Yang?
Yes.
It carries.
Thank you, Ann. Okay, next we move on to item 11D. Involves a request from the Rotary Club. Jeff, if you could give us that overview.
So the Rotary Club of Rossmore has submitted a request for a variance to policy related to the percentage of members that must be residents. So currently 80% of a club must consist of residents, while 20% of a membership can be non-residents. The club has asked for consideration that they be able to go beyond that 20% non-resident membership for a variety of reasons, including recruitment, and that their model as a service organization really relies on some business type participation within their club, and several of those folks reside outside of the gates. So you have a request from the club. The club has previously made variance requests related to the president of the club being a non-member, but this one is strictly related to the 20% rule. Happy to answer your
Wait,
question.
could you clarify that? The president is a non-member?
In the past, this
In the
club has
past,
asked for a variance related to that.
Okay. Any discussions, questions? Susan?
Well, I have a number of thoughts on this. And first of all, I'd like to say I totally support Rotary Club activities. They're great. So my comments are not about the service club and what it does. I'm wondering why this didn't come to the policy committee initially. That doesn't have to be answered, though, today. I have some concerns about this because this is not the only club that does not meet the 20% threshold. So that's a concern to me. I feel like the board is somewhat being put on the spot to make this decision here and I would like to see a broader policy developed about this. Given the fact that our room revenue has been declining, I've suggested in several circumstances that we try to identify a room rate higher than the club rate that would apply to these organizations that have less than 20%. So that's just something I'm thinking about. I'd like to think about that. So if I vote no to this variance request, it's because I think we have to look at a broader policy to how to deal with these groups that don't have the 20% membership.
So let me ask, are you asking to send it back to policy to look at more closely?
Well, yes, you can. I'd like to do that. I don't, if the Rotary, well, I guess what I would suggest is it go back to policy, but also I don't want the Rotary Club not to be able to meet. So if they were granted a variance for like 6 months or something until we developed a policy, I'd like them to continue to meet, but I think we need a broader approach to this issue.
I think they would have the ability to continue to meet as their current roster is within the 80-20. So I don't know if they're anticipating a shift in the roster. We do have plans to, especially in the early 2026 to start bringing some of these policies to the policy committee related to club qualifications as that relates to room reservations and so forth. So there's a number of items, as you mentioned, that will be coming before policy in the early new year.
Janet and then Dwight.
I agree with Susan. I think it should go back to policy.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I agree with Susan that this item should go back to the policy committee.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, membership has its privileges. We all pay to be members of Rossmore Walnut Creek. And for those coming from the outside, it's terrific, maybe a bit of a marketing tool to have them visit here. But to be able to use our facilities, hey, you got to be a member. So I think getting this back to policy and really thinking this through for the entire community is really important.
Okay, Mary?
I agree that this is a policy because we're talking about a well-respected and admired club, but we have many clubs, over 200, and to distinguish between who is and who is not would be a very, very bad thing if we didn't come to a joint policy.
Carol?
I agree, and I think you have to be very careful. You let one club change the rules, then are you setting a precedent? Then we've got all these other clubs that want more than 20% outside people. I think it has to go back to policy.
Adrian?
I agree that it should go back to policy. I also feel like, as a board member, I don't understand fully at this point what we're making a shift in the way we're dealing with clubs and room reservations and all the resources that we're giving to the clubs. And I think we need to a more in-depth, or at least I need a more in-depth understanding of how that all fits together, and before we make a variance like this. So I agree with pushing it back.
I agree with Susan. I respect Rotary. I think they did a very, very good job here. But for outside non-members to be here, all facility has a maintenance issue. So 20%, I think is adequate. And if they have special reasons, like you guys mentioned, we can study it, and it's going to be for every club. It's not just one club. So that's the problem, okay?
Okay, thank you, everybody. Deborah, help me out here. So as much as we respect the Rotary Club, looks like we don't approve this variance. So do we need a motion to?
No, the board direction is clear in the discussion period, which will be reflected in the minutes, that you want it to go back to policy. And I refer to Jeff as to how the communication.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. All right, I think that concludes our agenda. There will be a mid-month regular meeting of the board. I'm sorry, there will not be a mid-month regular meeting of the board in the month of October. And the end-of-month regular meeting of the board will be held on Thursday, October 30th, here at 9 o'clock. And now we will recess into executive session.